Hey everybody, welcome to one of our at-home table reads. Tonight we are jumping into, honestly, the kind of forgotten James Wan classic Dead Silence. So, leading us through tonight, I'll be taking over action description. As our lead Jamie, we have Erik. Perfect, hanging out right down there. Erik ends up going back to his hometown. He is hassled along the way by a detective who lurks, looking like a certain Waldberg brother, played by Jess, hanging out right down there. Perfect. When he heads back home, he ends up meeting his new stepmother, Ella, played by Angi. Fantastic. Along with, I'm kind of trying to do the introductory thing with that. He also, back in his hometown, meets Marion along with a few others. That's going to be Anne. And, well, before he leaves, he is actually engaged to a lovely woman named Lisa, who's going to be played by Mary Pat, along with a few others as we're heading through tonight. All right, everybody. Well, what do you say we get a little spooky tonight with Dead Silence? Here we go. Silence, a.k.a. Shhhhh, written by Lee Winnell and James Wan. This script is meant to be read late at night. Fade in, interior bedroom night. A candle. Its flame pulses, throwing a halo of light onto the bone-white walls. In its jaundiced glow, the silhouette of a woman sits on the edge of the bed. Lying in the bed is another figure, also veiled in shadow. A woman tucks the figure in. Their faces remain hidden in darkness as the scene plays out.
Time to go to sleep.
Tell me a story.
It's getting late. Tomorrow night.
Go on, I promise I'll be good for the rest of the year if you do.
The woman laughs.
What kind of story?
Scary one.
I don't know if I should. You'll have nightmares and wake up screaming.
I won't. I swear it. I swear it.
The woman sighs.
Well, I hope you're right about not screaming. That's the last thing you'd ever want to do.
Why?
The woman leans forward and whispers.
Because Mary Shaw might hear you.
Who's Mary Shaw?
What? You mean you don't know the tale of Mary Shaw?
No, tell me.
We move away from the bed, searching through the inky darkness. A spotlight illuminates a young girl about 5. She sits at a child-sized table, pouring tea for a doll.
Once in the town of Raven's Fair, a little girl named Mary sat alone in despair. No one loved this little girl, neither hugged nor kissed her, so she talked to her dolls. They were like her brothers and sisters.
We move past the little girl, searching through the dark and finding Mary at age 17. She's pregnant.
When Mary left home, she went straight out and married, and soon in her belly, a child she carried.
A mustached man who is clearly drunk steps up behind Mary, slapping her viciously and attacking her.
That is till the night her husband attacked her. She'd lost the baby, and sadness did rack her.
Everything goes dark, and then another spotlight soars through the space, giving light to a haggard and desperate-looking Mary, nursing one of her childhood dolls. She whispers to it.
Some say she went mad a little round in the bend because she started talking to her dolls again.
A red velvet curtain behind Mary parts, revealing Mary, now an old woman, sitting on a stage with a classic ventriloquist dummy in her lap.
To Mary, it wasn't a toy made of nuts, bolts, and wood. To her, she held a living being, the child. She never could. Over the years, she made a living talking to these dolls. A ventriloquist she became, the most talented of all.
As an unseen audience roars with applause, the red velvet curtain closes, and we ascend into the blackness, finding the weary figure of Mary trudging up a set of stairs.
Then late one night, when she returned to her room, hidden high above the stage, dark and cramped like a tomb.
Mary steps into her living quarters. Behind her, a man kicks open the door. It's the husband who attacked her earlier.
Her husband, the brute, as usual horribly drunk, heard Mary talk back to him and demanded her tongue.
The man hurls Mary onto a table, pinning her down and holding a razor aloft.
Mary resisted, wouldn't open her mouth, so he made her scream and then cut it out.
Mary screams, and the man severs her tongue with the razor. Darkness descends on Mary as she cries and cowers in a corner next to an empty baby's crib. Her back is to us, her face buried in her hands. She turns and steps up to a stool, slipping her head into a noose.
Mary couldn't go in without her tongue. She put her head in a noose, and from it she swung.
Mary steps off the stool, swinging in the noose. Her ventriloquist dummy is slumped in a chair opposite her.
But after that night, it was said that Mary Shaw wasn't really dead. Something had gone from her into the doll. Her spirit found a way to exact a terrible toll.
We move away, another spotlight showing us Mary's husband lying in bed. A noise stirs him awake and he sits up.
Her ghost would leave the doll that night and appear to people to cause them fright. And if those people who saw her did scream, their tongues would be gone, ripped out clean.
A shadow falls over Mary's husband as he screams. A cluster of gas lanterns swarm into view, the figures holding them up all clutching Mary's ventriloquist dummy. They wrap the doll in rosary beads, stuffing it into a heavy trunk.
Eventually, the town of Ravens Fair couldn't take it anymore. Not one more scare. They locked away the cursed puppet, stowed in a trunk, bolted, and shut it.
The trunk is slammed shut and bolted with a padlock. We explore the darkness beyond the trunk, finding ourselves once again in the dark, candlelit bedroom we opened in. The woman leans forward, lowering her voice for the finale of this grim poem.
But should you ever see her and your knees go weak, and you forget to hold in your shriek, remember these words that I have sung. It won't be the cat who's got your tongue.
The woman lets the words ring in the boy's ears.
So what do I do if Mary Shaw comes to visit me?
The woman laughs. She's enjoying this.
There's only one thing that can stop her.
What's that, Mother?
She picks up the candle next to the bed, holding it under her face.
Silence.
Dissolve 2. Interior, various rooms of an apartment night. Home sweet home. That's what the sign hanging on the wall says. We explore the room further, finding framed photos of a happy young couple, tastefully placed flower arrangements, and a pretty good 11th floor view of the city, all crammed into a shoebox apartment. Ah yes, modern domestic bliss. Ouch! The voice has come from the kitchen, where a young man is wedged under the sink, wrenching at pipes. This is Jamie Ashen, 29. We cannot yet see his face. An earthly, beautiful young woman enters, Lisa, 28.
Don't hurt yourself there, big guy.
I'm fine. It's stuck, that's all.
Maybe we should just call someone, Jamie.
Jamie emerges from under the sink. His young looks match his Batman t-shirt. This is one man who isn't done being a boy.
Like who?
Sorry.
Like who? A real man?
Lisa grins.
I didn't say that.
Well, why don't you just castrate me and give me a membership to Oprah's book club while you're at it?
Yeah, that would be fun. Then we would call up a real man and let him fix the sink. Let him fix the sink while we read.
Jamie breaks into a run. Lisa screams as he chases her into the living room. Jamie catches her, pinning her down on the couch as she giggles hysterically.
Don't, please.
Jamie sits on top of her.
Don't you want me to prove to you what a real man I am right now?
Yeah, fix the sink. That'll do it.
She bursts out laughing. He tightens his grip on her arms.
I'm going to if you stop interrupting me.
Okay, I will. The only thing is, I'm probably going to need to use it sometime this year, so...
She laughs again. He lowers his face, hovering inches above hers. They pause, staring into each other's eyes.
Never mind. There are other ways you can prove your manhood to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They kiss passionately. Jamie releases her arms as they curl around him. They roll over, limbs entwined. This is so on. Knock, knock. Jamie stops kissing her reluctantly.
Timing.
He gets up and goes to the door.
This is the plumber. You're in trouble.
He opens the door. A delivery man is standing there, holding a large box. Lisa Tuck?
She's inside. I'll sign for it.
He signs and takes the package, closing the door.
What is it?
It's a big goddamn box is what it is.
Lisa takes it and places it on the living room table. She checks the label on the package. It's addressed to her. There is no sender address. Jamie appears, handing her a pair of scissors.
Come on, open it up.
Lisa cuts through the tape, opening the box. She claws through a layer of shredded newspaper, revealing a cracked and peeling wooden surface beneath. Curious, she reaches inside and lifts out a ventriloquist dummy. The dummy is wearing a tattered tuxedo, a red handkerchief hanging out of the top pocket. It is the doll we saw Mary Shaw performing with in the opening scenes.
What the hell is that?
I have no idea.
She scratches around through the shredded newspaper, finding nothing else inside the box.
That's the creepiest thing I've seen in my life.
Who would send it to me?
Somebody creepy.
It's some kind of doll?
No, a doll is something a child plays with. That is something a man in a raincoat who hears voices in his head plays with.
I want to know where it came from.
Can you find out?
I don't know.
They sit the dummy on the table. It stares at them with lifeless black pupils.
Maybe it's a gift from your dad.
He's definitely creepy enough.
He called again today.
Are you serious?
He's been trying to reach you for weeks.
Yeah, well, he can keep trying.
A long beat. They return the dummy's gaze. Lisa finally turns to face Jamie.
Are you going to stare at this thing all night, or go back to being a handyman so we can make dinner?
Jamie looks down at the wrench in his hand. Cut to interior Chinese restaurant night. Jamie hands over cash in exchange for a bag of greasy Chinese takeout. Exterior city street outside restaurant night. Rain cascades down the streets. Jamie stops in the downpour, shielding himself with a newspaper. The concrete arches of the city loom overhead, trapping a cacophony of noise. Car horns blaze, sirens shriek, people shout to be heard above it all. Jamie makes a break for his car. A fire truck roars past, throwing water up onto him. He opens the driver's door, setting off the alarm. Interior Jamie's car, parked continuous. He jumps inside, shutting off the alarm and closing the door, lowering the volume of the city outside. Thank God. He takes a deep breath, looks up, and sees a woman selling roses in the doorway. Exterior apartment building, night. Mid-scale, New York style. Interior corridor apartment building. Jamie skips up the stairs. He seems giddy. In one hand, the takeout. In the other, a long-stemmed rose. He reaches his door, fishes for the keys. Interior, various rooms of the apartment, same. Jamie moves through the darkened apartment to the kitchen, dumps the takeout on the counter. He takes the plates out of a drawer.
You're gonna love this. You're gonna be glad we didn't make dinner ourselves.
He listens. A beat of silence passes.
You're not talking to me anymore, is that it?
He arranges the rice on the plates like he made it himself.
Hello?
Lisa's voice answers from upstairs. Sounds strangely detached.
No. I'm never talking to you again.
Jamie grins.
What if I was planning on coming upstairs and making you beg for mercy?
You'd be too late.
Jamie takes the plates and walks out of the kitchen.
Well, I guess Jesus!
He stops dead. Beneath him on the living room carpet is a splotch of blood in the shape of a foot. He stares at it, then steps forward slowly, seeing a crimson trail of footprints weave through the entire apartment. Fresh, wet, red. Instinctively, he puts down the plates and snatches up a kitchen knife, begins to stalk through the knife in their wake.
What's wrong?
Jamie listens. The apartment is eerily silent.
Jamie.
He continues to follow the trail, the footprints becoming messy ponds of blood. Trembling, he reaches a door, the blood disappearing underneath it. He grips the handle.
Jamie.
His chest expands as he heaves in a deep breath. He flings the door open, revealing a darkened laundry. In the shadows, he can clearly make out a silhouette of a figure slumped on the floor.
What's going on?
That time, Lisa's voice is right behind him. He whips around to warn her.
Lisa, stay back!
But Lisa's not there. He turns to face the intruder.
Who are you?
No answer. Trembling with fear, Jamie flicks on the light, illuminating the figure. It is Lisa. Dead. Blood seeps from within her mouth where her tongue should be, but isn't. Her face is a death mask, molded mid-scream, contorted, horrified, a frozen image of terror. Jamie cannot comprehend what he is seeing, confusion and shock colliding together on his face. From somewhere in the abyss, he lets out a primal, tortured scream.
No!
The scream changes pitch, becoming a siren. Uniformed police swarm through the entrance of Jamie's building, clearing a path for a gurney, which is loaded into a coroner's van. We know the two top cops talking to Jamie are important because they're not in uniform, trench coats and stern looks. Jamie, however, is a million miles away. Interior interview room, police station day. Jamie is slumped at a table. He is a shattered man, numb from the shock, zombie-like. Detective Jim Lipton, 47, sits opposite, a picture of hard-edged skepticism, a lit fuse.
Was the victim taking any prescription drugs or of any kind that you know of for depression or any form of mental illness?
No.
Does anyone in her family suffer from any form of mental illness or depression that you know of?
Why are you asking me this? What does this have to do with anything?
Lipton drills him with a hard stare, decides to let it go.
Did you notice anything different that night in her behavior Anything at all unusual?
Jamie stares at the floor, thinking back.
The doll.
What's that?
Lisa received some sort of doll in the mail that night. She didn't know who had sent it to her.
Okay. What about after you arrived home? Any signs of forced entry, evidence of a struggle, weapons?
Jamie is clearly mystified by the night's events. Finally.
I spoke to her.
What do you mean?
I spoke to her when I first got home. I called out to her and she answered me.
Lipton scans a file in front of him.
You said that you were gone about 40 minutes and that you got back home right at 7 p.m.?
Jamie nods.
Our forensic records show that the victim had been dead at least 20 minutes before that.
Jamie looks up at Lipton, terror on his face.
That can't be.
He meets Lipton's suspicious gaze. Their eyes stay locked. A long beat passes.
I hear you're leaving town for a few days, Jamie.
Yeah, for the funeral.
A place called Ravens Fair, is that it? That's a long way from here.
She was from there. We both were. Her family's still there. It's the only place she would have wanted to be buried.
Interior living room apartment day. Raining. The apartment is bare, almost empty. Jamie is collapsed on the floor by the window, his gaze reflected in the rain-soaked glass. Tears streak down his face. The phone rings. Jamie doesn't react. Lets the call go to the answering machine.
Hello?
Hello.
This might
Sound like us, but you're actually talking to an answering machine right now.
Wow. Leave a message.
Leave a message. We love you.
A beep.
Hello, Jamie.
Jamie turns towards the answering machine. The voice is gravelly and slurred, as if it were an effort to talk.
I only wanted to say 2 things. Please, allow me to do so.
Jamie stares at the machine.
The first is that you have my deepest sympathies in regards to Lisa. The second is,
Jamie moves towards the machine, about to pick up.
I know that you're coming back here for the funeral, so I would very much like you to come and see me while you're here. I want to talk to you. I've tried to reach you so many times in the past weeks, but I haven't heard anything from you. I don't know what else to do. Please, let me be here for you this time.
Jamie turns away.
Goodbye, son.
Click. Jamie reaches over and pushes the erase button. As he does, he glances over and sees the package the ventriloquist dummy came in sitting under the dining table. He crawls over to it, hauls it out, and opens it up. He lifts out the dummy, staring at its smiling face. The dummy's jaw falls open and a red cloth tongue falls out of it. Disturbed, Jamie checks the box. He leafs through the thin strips of paper that cushion the doll. He holds up one to the light, seeing the faded typeface on it, the shred of newspaper. The letters on it read, "N's Fair."
Ravens Fair.
Exterior country road day. A lonely road snakes through the fall-kissed countryside beneath a gray sky. Jamie's car appears over a hill. Exterior Ravens Fair day. Jamie's car speeds past a weathered sign, "Welcome to Ravens Fair," a quiet little town. The town of Ravens Fair yawns out of the valley beyond the sign, old buildings jutting out of the landscape like rotting teeth, the perfect place for a funeral. Exterior Walker's Funeral Home, dusk. The sun sets over a modest headquarters of the town's deceased. Jamie's car pulls up outside and he climbs out, surveying the deserted main street. A church clock towers at the end of the street, casts its twilight shadow across the vacant windows and faceless storefronts.
Sorry, computer froze. Never shut up, do ya?
Jamie spins around. Sitting on a rocking chair. He's cradling a dead raven in her hands.
Excuse me?
She holds up the raven and we realize she's talking to it.
Always hungry, always want something. It's okay. Best pet I ever had, you are.
The door to the funeral home opens and Henry Walker, 73, steps out.
Mr. Ashton,
Yes?
I've been expecting you. Please come inside.
Jamie follows him in, watching the woman whisper to herself in the chair, oblivious to Jamie's presence. Interior office, Walker Funeral Home, dusk. Cluttered. Must be a busy time. Henry sorts through the papers at his desk. He's a good man at a bad job, with a nervous smile. A worrier. Jamie sits opposite. Henry speaks to him in a hushed tone that Jamie will experience with everyone he meets in Raven's Fair.
You must excuse Marion, my sister. She's not well, but she didn't mean any harm.
It's okay. I wasn't harmed.
These days, she barely talks to me. No such thing as a perfect family, I suppose.
Yeah. Henry hands him a clipboard.
I'll just need you to sign where it's marked.
Jamie sighs.
Thank you, friend.
Henry takes the form.
Has she arrived yet?
Henry looks up.
She arrives tonight. The police have a few more things to...
He trails off. Jamie nods.
Listen. Oh,
Listen, I'm sorry to ask you this. Would it be possible for me to pay in installments? I'm a bit in a tight spot at the moment.
oh no, your father is taking care of it all.
Jamie furrows his brow, confused.
I don't... What is my father taking care of?
All of it. He called here and insisted, said to bill him whatever it cost. He's paying for the whole thing.
Henry watches Jamie's shocked reaction.
He didn't inform you?
No, he didn't.
You can check with him. Are you staying with him while you're here?
Jamie looks down at his shoes.
I'm sorry, that's none of my business.
Jamie looks up.
It's okay. Actually, do you know of a motel around here?
Cut to exterior. Come on in, motel. Night. The motel sign sways in the wind. The word vacancy spelled out in big black letters. Interior front office. Come on in, motel. Night. The office is empty. Jamie waits. A sign on the desk says, ring bell for attendance. He does, but the bell doesn't make a sound. He taps it a few more times. Nothing. Perplexed, he picks it up, inspecting it. A figure appears from the back room, carrying something.
Excuse me, sir.
The man emerges from behind the counter, walking straight past Jamie towards the door. He looks like an elementary school librarian. Jamie stops him.
Do you work here?
The man nods.
Okay, so can I get a room for the night?
The man shakes his head.
Are you joking?
The man shakes his head again. Jamie is agitated, city slicker style.
Well, the sign out the front says vacancy.
The man just stares at Jamie.
What the hell's wrong with you, man? Are you gonna say anything?
The man holds up what he is carrying. It's a square of white tin. Stenciled to it in big black letters is the word no. With that, the man exits. Jamie is dumbstruck. He goes to the window, watching the wiry man scale a ladder and begins slotting the no in front of the word vacancy. Jamie sees another figure emerge from one of the motel rooms, unloading a case from his car. Jamie squints at him. It's Detective Lipton. Time for Plan B. Exterior Ashen House, night. Pale headlights arc across the wrought iron gate. Jamie's car pulls up. He climbs out. An aging mansion looms beyond the gate, the grounds beyond it carpeted by a lazy fog. The moss-soaked spires and arched windows suggest an atmosphere one would coin House of Usher-esque. Jamie starts as a figure emerges from the shadows, a hulking man, all shoulders, Cro-Magnon brow. This is the maintenance man, Boz, 30s. He is holding an oil can. He begins to oil the hinges on the gate. His arms are covered in grease.
Hey, Boz, it's been a while.
Yeah,
Good to see you're still working here at night.
yeah.
Patrolling the grounds, keeping them safe from large, dangerous men.
Boz doesn't quite get it. He pulls on the gate, which opens without making a noise. Exterior Ashen House, night. Jamie ambles through the garden path towards the front door, shivering in the cold. He reaches the front door, hesitating. He knocks on it with a big brass door knocker at the center. Bad decision? Too late. The door opens, revealing Ella Ashen, late 30s. She is the ultimate trophy wife. Sexy, yet not so young and dumb that the pool man thinks she has a shot. She smiles warmly.
Well, this is a surprise.
Jamie clearly has no idea who this person is.
I'm so sorry about what happened. I can't imagine how you must be feeling right now.
Jamie looks a little awkward.
Oh my lord, you must think I'm so rude.
She curtsies and offers her hand. Old charm school manners and Southern traditions.
I'm Ella, I guess your stepmother.
Jamie shakes her hand.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jamie.
I know, I've seen your pictures, though you look much more handsome in the flesh.
Thanks. Is he in?
Is who? Oh, of course. Yes, he is. Silly me.
An awkward moment.
May I come in?
Ella cocks her head in mock disbelief, then steps aside, standing next to Jamie.
On the contrary, my dear, it is I who should be asking you if I can enter your home.
Sure.
Interior. Entrance hall, Ashen House continuous. Jamie shuffles through the door, Ella behind him. He surveys the cavernous surroundings. Oil paintings of stern figures glare down at him. Between the wall-mounted lamps that cast dim pools of light, Ella shuts the door.
It's freezing out there.
A voice booms from upstairs. We recognize it as the voice from the phone calls to Jamie.
Who was that at the door?
Ella looks to Jamie.
Would you like to see him?
Well, I've heard him now, and I can smell him. Why not ruin more of my senses?
Interior upstairs hallway, Ashen House, moments later. Ella leads Jamie down a narrow corridor.
I have to warn you, he's been very sick. He would have looked a lot better the last time you saw him.
I probably looked a lot better 12 years ago, too.
That's how long it's been since you two saw each other?
Yeah. I didn't even know he'd remarried, to be honest.
Ella can't tell if Jamie is sad about this or not. They reach a door and stop.
Well, again, I have to warn you, you might be more shocked than you think at his appearance. I'll tell him you're here.
She takes out a key, unlocking the door. She enters and closes the door behind her. We hear her talking to someone. Then,
Come on in, Jamie.
Jamie opens the door. Interior master bedroom, Ashen House continuous. The theme of the house continues. It's dark in here. Jamie takes in the room and finds what he's looking for. Ella was right. A gaunt male figure is propped up in a wheelchair in the corner. A plastic respirator covers his mouth, from which he draws staggered, respirating breaths. His hands are clawed as if his whole body is drying up. This is Charles Ashen, late 50s, Jamie's father. Ella is seated next to him. Jamie stands like he's in the principal's office. He doesn't ever look his father in the eye, a habit that will continue throughout the story.
Hello, Charles.
Charles speaks in a military stern manner, struggling to get the words out.
It's a shame that it takes a tragedy to put us under the same roof again.
Charlie, that's not the issue. Your son is here.
I know he is. Don't call me Charlie in front of him.
Quiet, Charlie. Don't make me wheel you into the closet and leave you there again.
Charles grumbles.
I assume you've met my wife.
Why don't you sit, Jamie?
Jamie shakes his head.
I always had to stand in front of my father.
Nothing wrong with standing. That's something you only appreciate after a stroke forces you to stay seated.
Jamie looks around, takes a seat across the room from Charles.
Thanks for the charity with the funeral.
Don't mention it.
I only mention it because I'm not accepting it.
And why is that?
Because Lisa was my wife, and I lived with her and loved her, and I'm going to be the one who pays for her funeral. So thanks, but no thanks.
I don't see why I can't help.
It's got nothing to do with you.
Ella, smiling as always, tries to break the heated moment.
Charlie, I was just telling Jamie how the photos of you and him just don't do him enough justice.
Neither Jamie nor Charles seem to hear this.
I've been trying to reach you, leaving messages at your house.
Yes, I know.
I'm glad that, in light of what's happened, you haven't let our past stop you from seeing reason this time.
Well, the only motel in town was all booked up, so.
Ella lights up.
Then you're staying the weekend?
Jamie doesn't answer.
Actually, Ella and I would like you to stay longer than one weekend. We'd like you to stay as long as you can.
I can't.
And why not?
I have to go back home and help the police.
Surely you can at least stay the week to clear your mind.
And why the sudden need for me to stay here?
We just feel that in light of what's happened, now would be a good time to resolve things.
Jamie's voice goes up an octave, frustrated.
Now would probably be the worst time to do that.
He sighs, calming down.
Look, I'm thinking it was a mistake coming here. I'm thinking I should just stay somewhere else.
Jamie gets up and walks towards the door.
I bet there's a whole lot of things your wife wanted to do with her life. A whole list of things she thought she had years to mark off.
Jamie spins around, angry.
Me, I've got the luxury of foresight. I've got the time to examine my list before I go.
Well, take me off it. You don't get a get out of jail free card just because you had a stroke. Goodbye, Ella. It was nice meeting you.
He storms out. Interior upstairs corridor at Ashton House. Jamie peels out of the corridor. Ella comes after him.
Jamie, he didn't mean to upset you. Please, would you just stay one night?
I've been here 10 minutes and I'm already up to my knees in bad memories. Why would I stay the night and get up into my chin?
It hasn't been all bad. You've also made a new friend in the last 10 minutes.
She approaches him and takes his hand.
And I've had the chance to meet someone I've been hearing about so many great things about.
Jamie pulls his hand away.
Well, now I know you're bullshitting. The father I grew up with would never say great things about me.
Yes, but an old man whose brain is shutting down from mini strokes would.
Jamie looks away, ashamed.
You have all the power here. You can walk out, but he can't come after you. Why don't you choose to stay and show him the young boy who left here is now a strong-willed young man?
She's got him. Interior Jamie's room. Ella flicks on a light, revealing a musty room filled with furniture draped in white sheets. Jamie flings his suitcase onto the bed, along with the box the ventriloquist dummy came in. He looks around. More bad memories.
Try to get some sleep, Jamie.
She suddenly steps forward and embraces him. He half accepts the hug, half doesn't. They separate.
I'm so glad to finally meet you. I'm just sorry it had to happen this way.
She leaves, shutting the door behind her. Jamie explores the room, noticing something odd. There are bars on the windows. Beyond the glass, he sees Boz padlocking the gate. Boz looks up, as if he knew someone were watching him, finds Jamie, and stares straight at him. Jamie pulls the drapes closed. Exterior, Main Street, Ravens Fair, night. All is quiet in Ravens Fair. The clock face on the church tower, as in the town square, hits midnight. There are no bells or chimes to accompany it. Interior, basement workroom, Walker Funeral Home, night. A body bag is laying out on a workbench. Henry hobbles up to it, uncoiling tubes of embalming fluid. Just another day at the office. He unzips the bag and freezes. The sight is like a slug to the gut. Inside the bag, we see Lisa's face. It looks exactly as it did when Jamie found her. Eyes wrenched skyward, face twisted into a permanent scream, tongueless mouth gaping open. Eerie. A flash of recognition flares across Henry's face. A long beat passes.
She's arrived.
Henry starts, looking up to see Marion standing in the darkness under the stairs, staring at Lisa's body.
I need to work now, Marion.
Marion leaves, walking up the stairs. Finally, Henry moves. He goes to a drawer, taking out a Polaroid camera. He aims it at Lisa's face, depressing the trigger. A white flash transposes into the Ashton house in a bloated moon. It hangs over the house, backlighting its gothic peaks. Interior, Jamie's bedroom, Ashton house, night. Blades of moonlight slice through the open window. The lace curtains swell and settle in the breeze. The ventriloquist dummy is propped up in a chair in the corner, its head facing the window. Jamie is wide awake, staring at the photo of Lisa. The look in his eyes is one of pure fear. Cut to Jamie's apartment, night, flashback. Lisa's face flashes in Jamie's mind, blood dripping down her chin, eyes wrenched skyward, dead. Interior, Jamie's room, Ashton house. He lowers the photo, taking a deep breath and pinching the bridge of his nose. Is he going crazy? He pries his eyes open and sees a cockroach skitter across the ceiling above him. A whisper slithers out from the darkness, so soft it could almost be the breeze playing tricks.
Jamie, you're home.
It sounded like Lisa. Jamie looks up and gasps. The dummy has moved to the other side of the room. Jamie flicks on the bedside lamp. In the light, he sees that it was just a mirror, its reflection showing the dummy, which is still sitting in the original position by the window. Except for one detail. The dummy is now facing him. Jamie gets up, slowly. He picks up the doll. Its head slumps forward onto his chest. He sits back into his chair, throwing up a portion to one of the white sheets over it, covering it up like a ghost. Breathing hard and shaking, he shuts the window, keeps his eyes on the doll. Behind him, beneath the bedroom door, the shadow of someone's feet move away down the hall. Exterior cemetery day. Gray headstones merge with the gray sky. The last leaves of fall scatter in fear of the oncoming winter. A dozen or so mourners hunch together around Lisa's plot, including Ella. Charles is not there. A shovel load of dirt is heaped onto the casket. Jamie sits in a chair, watching the black lid disappear under the wormy soil. Everyone stands opposite him, except Ella, who stands directly behind him, her face veiled in black lace. A priest stands over the grave, muttering something so low that we cannot hear it. Jamie scans the faces of the other attendees. None of them cry or make a sound, but they are all staring at him. Jamie looks away and spots Detective Lipton in the distance, standing by a tree, watching. The priest raises his voice ever so slightly, enough that we can finally hear he's saying something.
We look to our families and loved ones for solace.
Ella puts her hands on Jamie's shoulder. Exterior cemetery later. Jamie drifts away from the crowd, sees Lipton walking away, and scurries to catch him.
Detective Lipton,
Lipton stops and turns.
how are you?
Fine. I'm sorry I didn't come over and say anything. I thought I'd leave you alone.
It's okay. Detective, if you don't mind me asking, why are you here?
Lipton studies Jamie, gauging his suspicion.
For most people, a funeral is closure. For a homicide detective, it's a starting point.
Okay. See anything interesting?
Not yet, but I'm still looking. She deserves that, don't you think?
Jamie nods. He's right.
I just didn't expect you to show up all the way down here.
I didn't come for fun, kiddo. I'm here for the same reason plumbers hang with broken toilets a lot.
He walks away, then stops and turns around.
I'll be seeing you.
Jamie watches the detective stroll away.
She lost her voice.
Jamie turns, seeing Marion, Henry's sister from the funeral home. She steps closer to him, fear in her eyes.
Mary Shaw, she's lost her voice. Then she came back to claim ours.
She points to an old headstone that is partly obscured by the trees, away from the other headstones. Her voice grows in volume.
Mary Shaw did it. She's the one who steals tongues.
Jamie's blood freezes when he hears this.
What did you say?
Marion points at the headstone, her voice growing louder and more fearful.
And if those people who saw her did scream, their tongues would be gone, ripped out clean.
Henry appears, taking Marion by the arms roughly.
Marion, what are you doing? Leave him alone. You know better than this. Sorry, Mr. Ashen. She doesn't know what she's saying. I apologize, sir.
Henry leads her away, berating her under his breath. Jamie, still in shock, looks at the headstone she has been pointing to. It is decayed with age, vines strangling it. Etched into the rock, the words, "Here lies Mary Shaw." Interior dining room, Ashen House night. Clink, gulp, clink. This family dinner is very workmanlike. Chew, swallow, repeat. No talking. Candlelight dances around the walls as Ella spoon feeds a very gruel-like substance to Charles, at the head of a very long oak dining table. Jamie sits opposite, eyes down. Finally.
Isn't this wonderful? All of us eating here together?
Jamie pokes at his meal, a soppy and badly cooked roast dinner. He looks up. Ella and Charles are staring at him.
Great.
Ella smiles. She spoons more goop into Charles's mouth, then dabs his lips with a napkin.
So how much time are you taking off work?
What's that?
Surely they're giving you a break after what's happened.
Yeah, they are. I can pretty much go back whenever I want.
A long beat of silence follows, until
Who is Mary Shaw?
Ella and Charles stop what they're doing.
I'm sorry, honey. Speak up a little bit.
Marion, from the funeral home. She said something to me today about a woman named Mary Shaw. She said Mary Shaw did it.
And also believes Jesus communicates to her through the fillings in her teeth.
Ella goes back to spoon feeding Charles.
I remember the name, though. Mary Shaw, from when I was a kid around here. They had a poem about her, I think. Mom used to read it to me.
Ella looks up, reacting to the words, if only slightly.
Spent most of your childhood far away from here in boarding school.
I'm aware of that.
Jamie, would you like something to drink?
I'm fine.
Clink, gulp, clink.
So you've never heard of her?
No. I told you that woman from the funeral home is crazier than a shithouse rat.
Poor old thing. Jamie, would you like dessert? I made a pear pie.
No, thank you.
Clink, gulp, clink.
I know I heard her name.
So have you considered staying here for a few more nights?
I can't. It was just the way she said it. She seemed so scared.
I would love for you to stay for lunch, Jamie. You simply must try my walnut cake.
It's settled then. Lunch it is.
Jamie slams his fork down. Blank looks from Ella and Charles.
I can't stay!
He gets up and leaves. Exterior Ashen House. Jamie charges out of the front door, breathing hard. A figure catches his peripheral vision and he stops in his tracks. It's Boz in the distance. He's talking to someone at the front gate. Jamie squints at the second figure through the fog. Detective Lipton. Jamie hides himself behind a branch, watches the exchange between the two men, too far away to hear anything. Boz nods and Lipton takes note. Jamie backs up slowly, back into the house. Interior bathroom, Ashen House. Jamie splashes water over his face, shaken. He has the look of a first-day prison inmate, a man with no escape. He looks up into the mirror and is startled to see Charles sitting in his wheelchair at the opposite end of the corridor.
I'm sorry. I have to learn that you're a man now. I don't need me telling you how to run your life.
A long beat passes between them.
You know, I did used to make inquiries about you after you left. I had my sources. People would always tell me that you were happy, that you were doing well. I never wanted to interrupt that.
Jamie nods, growing more disturbed by his father's truce.
Good night, son.
The wheelchair retreats and is swallowed up by the darkness, the screech of its wheels receding in volume as it moves away. Exterior Ashen House night, the witching hour. Storm clouds roll in, low growls of thunder announcing their arrival. Beneath the brooding sky, only one arched window of the house remains lit. It switches off. Interior entrance hall, Ashen House. The curtains lull gently, the only thing moving in the darkness. Kitchen, a faucet drips. Drip, drip, drip. In the corridor, a grandfather clock ticks. Tick, tick, tick. Interior Jamie's room. Jamie is asleep. A bottle of sleeping pills sits at the bedside table, tablets scattered around it. For a moment, it's only Jamie's steady, rhythmic breathing we can hear. Then another sound is introduced. At first, it could be Jamie, until it drowns him out. Sobbing. Jamie's eyes flutter. He tunes into the guttural moans. His vision adjusts to the darkness, scanning the room, past the door, past the furniture covered in white sheets until they stop dead on something. A figure is hunched over in the corner by the window, whimpering, its back to Jamie. The figure's head rests in its hands, mirroring the image we saw of Mary crying in the opening scenes. Jamie bolts upright in bed, adrenaline kicking in. He stares at the figure for a long beat.
Ella?
Immediately, the sobbing ceases and the figure stands up, turning around to face Jamie. Shrouded in shadow, it resembles an old woman, her pale face catching what little light there is. A sudden gust of wind sends the drapes billowing outwards, obscuring the woman. Only the woman's eyes pierce through the sheer lace fabric, eerily wide and unblinking, staring right at Jamie. Then, the drapes settle, and she's gone. Heart in his throat, Jamie switches the bedside lamp on and gets out of bed. Going to the window, he checks all the corners and finds nothing. Bang! The doll falls out of his chair, splaying across the floor. Jamie picks it up. As he lifts it, he sees a faded inscription on the back of the doll's neck. It reads, M. Shaw. Interior entrance hall, Ashen House, morning. The house awakens. Jamie descends the stairs quickly, heading for the front door. He catches sight of Ella, who is busying herself in the kitchen with pots and pans.
Oh, Jamie, you're up. Would you like some breakfast?
No, that's okay.
Are you going somewhere?
He doesn't answer. Exterior Ashen House. The sun rises over Ashen House for a new day. Jamie flings open the front door, rushing towards his car, then stops in his tracks. A fallen tree is blocking the driveway. Boz hacks away at it with a saw. Jamie approaches.
What happened here?
Storm.
What storm?
Storm last night.
Okay, so how am I supposed to get my car out?
Have to wait.
How long?
A day, maybe.
Jamie can't believe it.
A day? But you can't.
Ella appears in the doorway.
Jamie, can I get you to help me with something? I'm just not as strong as I used to be.
A twinge of nervousness spreads across Jamie's face. He looks from Ella to the gate like a trapped animal. He chooses the front gate.
I would, but I have to go somewhere.
Well, when will you be back? I'm making lunch.
Jamie quickens the pace, not looking back.
Later. I'll be back later, I promise.
Boz and Ella watch him go. Exterior Forest Road day. Jamie marches skittishly down a winding tree-lined road, a vein cut through the heart of forest by men. The forest does its best to claim the land back, gnarled branches overhanging it and trapping a mist that keeps Jamie from seeing too far ahead of himself. He keeps going anyway. Exterior various streets of Ravensfair. Through the streets of Ravensfair, past quaint houses that have seen better days. He looks over at a group of children playing together in a street corner, as children do, except for one thing. They sing under their breath, not making a sound. Exterior, Walker Funeral Home, Ravensfair, Main Street, day. Marion sits in her chair, cradling her crow. Jamie approaches. She doesn't seem to notice. He kneels down, apprehensive.
Ma'am, I have to talk to you.
She strokes the head of her dead bird, smiling.
You said something to me about my wife yesterday. You said a woman named Mary Shaw did it?
Marion looks up slowly, leans forward and whispers in Jamie's ear.
She's standing right behind you.
As much as we can actually see a shiver run down someone's spine, we see it with Jamie. He turns around. No one is there. He grips Marion's shoulder, desperation in his eyes.
Who is she? Tell me.
Mr. Ashen, I would prefer it if you left her alone.
Jamie starts as Henry interrupts. He stands up, dejected, backing away from Marion.
Henry will tell you about Mary Shaw. He saw her once, in the flesh herself. Didn't you, Henry?
Jamie looks at Henry. Husband. Interior Walker Funeral Home day. Henry peers through the shop front windows, then flips the open sign to close, locking the door. He begins pulling the blinds closed.
There are things you remember and things you can't forget.
Jamie sits in an old armchair, listening attentively.
Despite the inarguable fact that I am getting on in years, I remember a lot of things about my life. Remember them well, in fact.
He turns to face Jamie.
But the look on old Mary Shaw's face when she died, that's something I just can't forget.
Henry paces the room, nervous as ever.
What would you say if I told you that 60 years ago, in this very town, I saw a face that looked exactly like your wife's did?
I'd say go on, please.
Henry lowers his volume, as if someone were eavesdropping.
Her name was Mary Shaw, the woman who lost her voice.
Dissolved 2. Exterior, Guignol Theater, night, flashback. Lights glitter on the surface of a large lake cast by a majestic building which rises up from an island at the lake's center. This is the Guignol Theater, the pride of Ravensfair. Streams of people cross a footbridge which runs through the island, dressed in their Saturday night best.
Back when I was a boy, the one horse they had in this town hadn't been shot yet. Some people even say it could become a boom town, a real cultural hotspot. And so, somebody built a grand old theater on the edge of town.
Interior Auditorium, Guignol Theater, night. A cocky boy about 10 maneuvers his way through the plush seats of the auditorium. This is young Henry. Young Henry finds his seat, settling into one near the front.
I only ever went there once.
The lights fade in the auditorium. A spotlight comes in, signaling out an old man in a bright red suit standing on the stage. It's Mary's husband, who we met in the opening scenes.
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be astounded. Prepare to be amazed. Witness Mary Shaw give the life to the boy made of wood.
Spotlight switches off. Mary's husband leaves the stage. Henry squints at the stage, seeing a figure which limps out from behind a curtain shrouded in shadow. The screech of something heavy the figure is dragging pierces the hush. The figure stops at the lip of the stage. A spotlight illuminates the figure. It's an old woman, her angular features sticking out like an accusatory finger. The shock of white hair framing her face. This is Mary Shaw. She bends down, unlocking a large wood trunk she's been dragging, and heaves the lid upwards. She removes a top hat from the trunk, then rolls the trunk on its side. It's empty.
Where is Billy?
She casts a suspicious eye over the audience.
Have any of you seen him? Was it you who let him out?
She begins to potter around the stage, searching high and low.
Billy, where did you go? Billy!
You won't find me.
Henry jumps out of his skin as the voice screams out from right behind him. He whirls around, heart in his throat. No one is there. Mary whips her head around, shielding her eyes from the flare of the spotlight.
I knew you were hiding.
She makes out Henry a few rows in front.
You there, could you check under your seat for me?
Henry reluctantly gets up, peeking under his seat. The cherubic face of a ventriloquist dummy stares back at him with the vacant gaze of the dead. Mouth stretched into a grin. It's the dummy we know well.
He's here. Would you mind bringing him to me?
Henry hauls the dummy out from under his seat, carrying him to the aisle to the stage. Mary takes the dummy in her arms.
Say thank you, Billy.
The dummy's head swivels around slowly to face Henry.
Thank you.
Henry returns to his seat. Mary takes her place on the stool, and the dummy's head starts lolling back and forth as she props him up in her lap, placing the top hat on his head.
Why must you run away, Billy? Don't I treat you well?
As he talks, the dummy's jaw lowers and shuts vigorously.
You do treat me well, Mother. The best I could ever hope for. It's just that...
Yes, Billy?
Well, it's just that it gets so dusty inside that box. It makes me want to...
Want to what?
Billy leans back as if he's about to sneeze.
It makes me want to...
Mary whips out a handkerchief out of his top pocket, holding it up to his nose.
Achoo!
As he sneezes, the handkerchief blows outward, propelled by the force of the sneeze. The audience laughs and claps.
Ugh, blech, shoo.
Bless me?
No, I said blech,
She holds up her foot.
shoo. You sneezed all over my shoe.
The audience laughs again.
I'm sorry for that, Mother. I can see your lips move.
Mary and Billy stop their act and turn to face the accusing audience. The moment hangs in silence for a beat.
Who said that?
At first, no one admits it, until a red-headed boy of about 10 pipes up from the middle row.
I did. I saw your lips moving.
What do you say to that, Billy? He doesn't seem to think you're a real person.
What do you mean, Mother?
Mary keeps her eyes fixed on the boy. Her and Billy's voices have lowered. With this new, less sprightly tone, Billy's grin now seems malevolent.
He thinks you're a dummy and that I'm doing your voice for you.
But that can't be true. There's no way you'd give me all the good lines.
Laughter from everyone.
Just forget about him, Billy. There will always be doubters.
I don't want to forget it, Mother. I think we should show this boy that I'm real.
No, I'm afraid we must go on with the show.
I refuse to go on until he believes that I'm real.
Mary and Billy shouting begins to overlap.
Let me go talk to him, Mother.
No.
I just want to talk to him. I
Sit
want to
still,
teach-
child. Do you hear me?
The audience breaks into applause, amazed by the performance, all except Henry, who shrinks back to his seat, afraid. The clapping dissipates, and Mary turns to face the red-headed boy. Her eyes drill into his, grin now spreading slowly across her face.
Now who's the dummy?
Interior living room, Walker Funeral Home, day. Present. It's clear that the afternoon's evenings have been seared, or the afternoon's events are seared into Henry's brain.
Some weeks later, that disbelieving little boy went missing. Gone, without a trace. Eventually, the search for him was abandoned and the case left unsolved. But I always felt in my gut that Mary had played some role in it. I only saw her one other time.
He points toward the stairs with a trembling hand.
Down there, in the basement.
Interior stairwell, Walker Funeral Home, night, flashback. Henry, the young version we just met, tiptoes stealthily down the steps towards the workroom. He reaches the last step, stealing a glance inside.
I never did find out the exact details of her death. I do know that whatever she looked like when she died, it must have been quite something to turn my father's head.
A man in a 1940s police uniform stands over a cot covered by a sheet. Henry's father, Richard, 40s, listens to the officer's whispered utterances. The officer lifts the sheet. We do not see. A flash crosses Richard's face, a tremor of repulsion he barely contains. He looks away. The officer lowers the sheet, handing a thick contract to Richard.
This is her last will and testament. All the instructions are inside.
He turns on his heel, leaving as if he couldn't get out of there fast enough. Henry slinks back into the shadows, watching him go by.
Having a body in our home was nothing new to me. It didn't give me so much as a goosebump to know that I was sharing shelter with a corpse. But for the next few days, things were different around our house.
Interior front door, Walker Funeral Home, day, flashback. Richard opens the front door, letting a tall man who is carrying a familiar ventriloquist doll, Billy, entering the house. They shake hands. Henry watches through the crack in his bedroom door. Interior stairwell continued. Henry pokes his head through the banisters, spying on the tall man, arguing with his father in the hall below.
You have to give me time. This is not what I do. A wooden toy is something quite different to a human being.
It's unusual for me also. I've never had someone request this, and there will before. Interior stairwell, Walker Funeral Home. Henry listens to his father work as he lurks down the stairs. Interior basement workroom. Henry peers inside the room. Richard and the tall man toil away at Mary Shaw's body, which we still cannot see. While he works, Richard keeps looking up to study Billy, the dummy, sitting in the far corner. The whole room is a mess of paintbrushes and tools. Richard sets up an old box camera next to the bench. He aims the camera at Mary, clicking off a picture. Henry watches. He leans a little too far forward, knocking a mop over. Richard whips his head up, fuming. Henry! Get out of here while we're working! He charges over as Henry scurries away, slamming the door. Interior, Henry's bedroom, night. Flashback. Lightning flickers outside. Henry lies awake in bed.
The thing that intrigued me the most, though it was not how Mary had died, or even who she was before she died. It was her final request.
Henry sits up, climbing out of bed and padding through the room, past the sleeping figure of his sister, Marion, 8. Interior stairwell, Walker Funeral Home, continued. Henry creeps out down the stairs. He stops after every step he takes, listening to the darkened house.
It was said that, as her last wish, she had asked to be buried looking exactly like her doll. To become a doll herself.
A low rumble of thunder seems to warn him as he reaches the workroom door. Henry scans. There's no one else around. He takes out a key and unlocks the door. Interior basement workroom, Walker Funeral Home, continuous. Henry takes a moment and steps inside. The room's only light source is a small desk lamp in the far corner. In the center of the room, atop the workbench, is an open coffin. Opposite the coffin, angled to one side of the chair, is Billy the dummy, eyes staring off at the far wall. Henry takes a few paces inside, keeps watching the dummy. Lightning blinks in the window, casting long shadows. He edges closer, reaching the bench. He gets up on his toes, placing his hands on the edge of the coffin. He glances over at the dummy. It hasn't moved. He hauls himself up, straining to get a look inside the coffin. The light flicks on. Richard stumbles into the room, bleary-eyed and angry. Mary Shaw is but a lifeless corpse once again, lying on the floor like a rag doll. Richard surveys the scene and turns to Henry. You had better start Talking right now, son. Cut to interior living room, Walker funeral home. Henry gazes at the wall, reliving memories he'd clearly like to forget. Now we see why he's the nervous wreck that he is.
She'd cut her tongue out, apparently. Without her voice, her livelihood, she couldn't go on. She hung herself. After that, it was said that her ghost would roam Raven's Fair at night, stealing the tongues of those who would scream in her presence.
Jamie is silent for a beat.
You're telling me that my wife was murdered by a ghost?
I think it's better that I don't tell you anything more and show you instead.
Henry gets up and opens a drawer. He takes out an old black and white photo, handing it to Jamie, along with a Polaroid he took of Lisa. Jamie takes them both, and they take his breath. The faded images of an old woman, her face garishly painted up, like a doll. Jamie's eyes switch between the photo of Mary Shaw and the Polaroid of Lisa. Mary's death face is eerily similar to Lisa's. Those eyes, like a victim who glimpsed hell before their last gasp. Jamie holds up the photo of Lisa.
You took this picture?
Henry nods. Jamie charges up to him, furious. Henry flinches.
What kind of sick bastard are you? I brought her here to be buried, not to be a memento in some narcoleptic's photos albums.
I have to take pictures. It's part of my business. I can't work without them.
Jamie backs down.
You seem to be forgetting that you came to me, Mr. Ashen. I never wanted to share this with you. You asked.
Jamie paces, shredded nerves.
You're talking about a woman who died 60 years ago.
No, we're not. We're talking about a woman who died 3 days ago. Whether you believe in ghost stories or not, you could not deny what you have in your hands.
Jamie stops, examines the pictures.
The night Lisa died, somebody sent her a package. We opened it up and there was some sort of dummy in it. A ventriloquist dummy.
He turns and drills Henry with a fearful look.
It has Mary Shaw's name written on it.
Now it's Henry's turn to look fearful. Jamie studies the picture of Mary Shaw, thinking back.
Mary Shaw.
A few words of rhyme drift back into his memory from the fog of his childhood. He recites them as they come to him.
Then late one night, when she returned to her room, hidden high above the stage, dark and cramped like a tomb.
Jamie looks over at Henry.
She lived at that old theater, didn't she? The one on Lake Erie?
He throws the photo on the table, heading for the door.
Where are you going?
I'm going there.
Nobody ever goes up there. Nobody smart wants to.
Jamie opens the door.
If you're trying to find a ghost, Mr. Ashen, you're going to regret it. I promise you.
Jamie turns around.
I'm not trying to find a ghost. I'm trying to find out what happened to my wife.
He closes the door behind him. Exterior Walker funeral home day. Jamie steps out into the street, looks both ways, as if searching for a cab.
God damn it. In my car.
You can take ours.
Jamie whirls around to see Marion dangling a set of car keys.
Henry doesn't let me drive.
Interior Walker funeral home day. Henry watches through the window as a monstrous black hearse speeds off down the main streets of Raven's Fair.
Son of a...
Jamie is behind the wheel. Exterior dirt road day. Jamie pilots the hearse along the off-the-map road that is bordered by towering trees. Speckles of sunlight dapple the windshield, peeking through the branches. Jamie slows down, seeing an old weatherboard house on his left. Interior weatherboard house, the same. Behind a grimy pane of glass that passes for a window, we see the hearse roll past the house. Someone is watching through a chink in the curtain. A dark figure turns, going over to the phone and dialing. Interior hearse, same. Jamie continues along the road, which gets darker as the foliage overhead thickens. The dirt turns to mud, squelching through the trees. The road narrows. Jamie glances over into the passenger window and turns back and hits the brakes. He has reached a dead end. At least, that's what the sign says. The sign also says private property. Below these words, someone has spray painted, "No one goes in, no one comes out." Trees block the road behind the sign like a giant wooden sentry. Exterior roadside day. Jamie steps out of his car. He moves past the sign, clawing through the thick brush and stumbling onto the shore of a swampy lake. A sodden makeshift jetty juts out over the water, all the remains of a footbridge that once ran to the theater. A small boat is lashed to it with frayed rope. In the center of the lake is an island, and to that and on that island is the Guignol Theater. A lone crow caws in the distance. Jamie steps into a boat. It rocks as he sits in it. He unties the rope and begins rowing out towards the island. Exterior Guignol Theater, day. Moments later, Jamie aligns the boat, tying it to a stake, and then stares up in awe at the building before him. Like an aging former movie star, he can still glimpse the glory behind the brittle bones. Tall and imposing, it is obvious someone put a lot of work into this place, but nature has stripped away her dignity. He approaches the building. Nothing appears to grow on the island. All the trees are skeletal relics, tortured in impossible shapes by starvation. Dead ravens litter the ground. It is as if some sort of bird holocaust had occurred. Jamie steps up to the double doors and sees something on the ground below him. A footprint. It's recent, the mud fading, but still clear enough to make out. The footprints lead to the door. Jamie knocks on it lightly, and it groans open. Somebody has already been here. Interior auditorium, Guignol Theater, day. Inside, the same story is out. A palace once grand, now derelict. A curtain of red velvet hangs across the stage, once regal, now moth-eaten. Jamie makes his way down the aisle, scanning around. Shards of sunlight cut in from outside, highlighting the ornately sculpted statues that gape down at Jamie from the corners of the high ceiling, above a huge audience balcony. He reaches the stage, clambering up onto it. He looks around the auditorium, not a hint of movement. All we can hear is his quivering breath. He steps behind the curtain. Interior stage. It has been a long time since anyone has trod these boards. An old piano at the side of the stage is all that remains. Jamie lifts the key cover, tapping on a few keys. The sound is eerily discordant, neglected by time. Matches the feeling in here. Jamie paces around the stage, seeing a pile of wooden planks in one corner. He looks up to the lighting rigs high above him, spotting a door which is slightly ajar. Nailed across the door are a few random wooden planks, most of which have been torn away. Somebody has definitely already been here. The only way to reach the door is across a narrow catwalk which runs over the stage like a suspension bridge. Jamie finds a set of stairs which lead up into the lights. He ascends them, vertigo setting in as he sees the stage below. At the top of the stairs, he takes a tentative step into the rickety catwalk, then scampers quickly across it. He pushes the door open. Interior passageway, Guignol Theater. Entering a short passageway from a rounded door at the end of it, Jamie advances, reaching the door and trying the handle. It opens. Interior, Mary's living area, Guignol Theater. He crouches through the portal into a squalid living area. Pale shafts of light filter through the window, showing Jamie a small dinner table with a crude kitchen set in the corner, quilted in spider webs. In the other corner, a threadbare mattress and sheets. Next to it is a stage mirror, framed by light bulbs. Makeup is spread out on the table beneath the mirror. A shelf on one wall is crowded with assorted junk, among it a dozen stuffed animals, sewing kits, needles, and jars of embalming fluid. Jamie goes to the shelf, picking up a taxidermic black cat, face frozen mid-hiss. Yellow eyes glaring. He searches the shelf further, finding a small doll wearing an old-fashioned dress. One of its eyes is missing. His fingers find a string at the back. He yanks it and its voice croaks to life, age slowing it to a masculine drawl.
Mommy.
Creeped out, Jamie looks up from the doll and gasps. Reflected in the stage mirror, strung up by a noose and tied to a beam, staring at him with bulging eyes, is the figure of Mary Shaw. Jamie whirls and sees nothing. Whips back to the mirror. She's gone. Jamie's chest heaves, the shock still coursing through him. He pokes the mirror nervously, then notices something in the reflection. A wooden trunk in the corner behind him. He goes over to it. The chest has been thrown open, its lock shattered. Rosary beads are scattered around it. Jamie peers into it. A tattered top hat sits inside it, and nothing else. The top hat is lined with red velvet that matches the suit Billy wears. An axe lies strewn next to the trunk. It looks brand new. Jamie wipes sweat from his brow at examining the axe blade. He smiles. Exterior lake, day. Jamie rows back across the lake. The axe lies on a boat next to him, wrapped in a rag. He looks up, seeing 4 figures standing on the shore.
Shit.
It is a man in a sheriff's uniform, an unidentified woman, Henry, and Lipton. Exterior, lakeshore, moments later. The woman, Audrey, 30s, rushes up to meet the boat as it arrives.
I want him arrested. He's a goddamn trespasser.
Audrey, let me handle this.
The sheriff spins him around, slapping cuffs on him.
You're under arrest for trespassing, theft of a motor vehicle.
Your sister gave me the keys.
They weren't hers to give.
Jamie looks around at the group.
I must be a popular guy. Everyone but the mayor is here.
My brothers in law enforcement here in Ravens Fair were kind enough to let me know when they got a call about you.
I don't believe this. derelict building like nobody gives a crap about.
It's private property. My property. There's a sign that says so.
Can't argue with that.
Jamie laughs, but more of a snort, actually.
Well, shit, looks like you got me red-handed, detective. Open and shut case for trespassing. You could push for the chair on this one.
No. We saved the chair for wife killers.
Jamie lunges at him. With his hands cuffed, Lipton easily sidesteps, kicking Jamie in the back. Jamie lands face down in the mud with a smack. Lipton drives a knee into his back.
Assaulting an officer, resisting arrest. You're writing a shopping list here, buddy.
He grabs Jamie's hair, yanking his head up.
What the hell are you doing up here?
Trying to find out what happened to Lisa, which seems to be more than you're doing.
Oh, really? Well, right now I'm on top of the #1 suspect.
God damn it, I didn't kill my wife!
Then you got 3 seconds to tell me what it is you're doing here.
Something about Lisa's death leads to this place.
What are you talking about?
There was a woman named Mary Shaw. She lived in the theater.
No one has ever lived in there.
Yes, they have. She lived in there and she hung herself after her husband cut her tongue out.
Lipton looks up at the sheriff, who shakes his head.
If somebody had hung themselves in there, I would know about it.
Tell them, Henry. Tell them what you told me about Mary Shaw.
Everyone looks to Henry.
What is he talking about?
Mary Shaw, tell them.
Henry turns to the sheriff.
The last time I spoke to him was when we were arranging the funeral.
You're a liar.
Lipton eases off of Jamie's back, watching all of this with interest. The sheriff hoists Jamie to his feet.
Let's go.
You know what you said to me.
I called your father. You're lucky he made arrangements for you to be taken home.
I don't want to go to my father's house. I want somebody to fingerprint that axe and tell me who it was that broke into that theater.
I know who it was.
She steps up to Jamie.
It was you.
The sheriff leads Jamie towards the car. Lipton picks up the axe, examining it.
I'll take him, Sheriff. That's okay with you. Fine by me.
Interior, Lipton's car, moving. Day. Jamie sits in the back. Lipton drills him in the mirror.
They're lying.
About what?
Mary Shaw. They know who she is.
Jamie stares out the window, aware that he sounds crazy.
That night Lisa died, somebody sent her a package. There was a doll in it.
What?
Ventriloquist dummy. And it belonged to a woman named Mary Shaw, a woman who died in that theater a long time ago.
You mind telling me what the hell that has to do with the death of your wife?
Something's not right about Lisa's death. I don't know what it is, but it's there. You said it yourself. No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry.
You're not making any sense.
The package, that doll, came from here. I want to know who sent it.
Lipton furrows his brow, incredulous.
So you think whoever sent it killed your wife?
I don't know. All I know is that ever since I got here, things have been happening to me. Strange things. This place is suffocating me.
Jamie
It's a
watches the
harmless little town.
Jamie watches the trees whip past the window.
No. I've always said that it's not where you are. It's what happens to you while you're there. I was born in this town. It's who I am. All I remember when I was here are the daily beatings for my father and the death of my mom.
He meets Lipton's gaze in the mirror.
Do this one thing for me. Help me. After that, you can do whatever you want.
Exterior, Ashen House, day. Lipton walks Jamie up the front porch towards the front door. Boz clears away branches to the side, staring at Lipton. Lipton knocks at the door, and it's opened by Ella.
Special delivery.
Is he in trouble, officer?
Well, that depends. The sheriff's department here would like to speak to him tomorrow, as long as he stays out of trouble between now and then.
We'll keep him here, officer. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Wait. There's something I'd like to give to the detective before he goes.
Interior, Jamie's bedroom, Ashen House, day. The door opens. Jamie enters, picking up the box which he has shoved Billy into. He hands it to the detective.
Can't promise anything.
Ella appears in the doorway.
Sure you don't want to lock me up for the night down at the station?
Lipton smiles.
That's not up to me.
He turns and leaves.
I'll walk you to the door, officer.
Jamie goes to the window, staring through the bars. He hears Lipton and Ella clomp down the stairs, then watches Lipton exit the house and head for the car. Then, from somewhere deep in the house, an angry bellow.
On!
Jamie turns towards the voice.
May I see you, please.
Interior library, Ashen House, dusk. A roaring fireplace licks out over the stately library. Ella walks up behind Charles, whispering in his ear. She spins Charles' wheelchair around so that he can see Jamie standing in the doorway of the darkened room.
Where have you been all day?
I got caught up. Sorry.
You sure did. The police told me all about it.
Jamie stares at his shoes, a child being punished.
So what do you have to say for yourself? Stealing cars and breaking into places? Is that how you spend your days?
No.
So why did you do it?
I was trying to... I don't know.
Your father and I aren't mad at you, Jamie. We just want to protect you. We care about you.
Yes. In fact, Ella spent all day making you a special lunch.
Jamie looks up at Ella.
I'm sorry, Ella.
It's okay.
It's the reason we wanted you to be here for lunch is that it's Ella's birthday today.
Happy birthday, Ella.
Ella beams.
That's quite okay. We're going to have a birthday dinner tonight instead. What do you say?
Cut to interior dining room, Ashen House, night. Candles flicker on a cake before Ella blows them all out. Jamie is once again seated at the end of the table, opposite Charles and Ella. He prods his dinner, hasn't touched any of it, looks nervous.
I love birthdays, especially my own.
Till you remember how old you are.
Ella hits him mockingly.
Be quiet, you.
She cuts into the cake with a large knife.
Would you like some cake, Jamie?
No, I'm fine.
No, thank you, is what you say.
Ella removes a slice.
I know this is a very hard time for you, Jamie, but I've always found that even in a small way, there's nothing like a piece of chocolate cake to raise your spirits.
Or raise the needle on the scales.
Ella bursts out laughing, pointing the knife at Charles.
One more word out of you and it's off with your head.
Jamie shifts uncomfortably in his seat.
What about a birthday song?
No, darling, Jamie's had enough of us.
Come on, we'll sing one for him.
Jamie smiles nervously.
1, 2, 3.
He takes a deep breath.
For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow.
Ella beams even wider than usual, joining in.
For he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny.
Jamie starts to shake, the fork in his hand quivering.
Which
nobody can deny. Which nobody can deny.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very nice.
And back to awkward silence.
You sure you don't want any cake, Jamie?
Jamie casts his eyes down, fidgeting.
No. Thank you.
Suddenly, Charles explodes, screaming at Jamie.
Look at her when you talk to her, you ungrateful little bastard!
Charlie, calm down.
No, I won't. This is the way it's always been with him. And all he does is take.
Jamie pushes himself up from the table.
All we've done since you got here is make you feel welcome, but it's never good enough.
Good for what? A hug and a fucking apology?
He turns to Ella.
Just to keep you to date, Ella, the last time I saw Charles here 12 long years ago, I was squinting at him through a black eye that he gave me.
Yes, and it's easy to get sympathy when in only one side of the story.
Bile rises in Jamie's throat as years of frustration and hurt erupt from within him.
I was a kid, Dad. That's the whole story. End of story.
I gave you everything, and you still fought me.
Toy cars don't mean shit when you're locked in your room all day listening to you hit Mom.
How dare you say that in front of my wife?
Ella can't take it anymore.
Why can't we all just be one happy family for one night on my birthday?
Because of me. That's why. I'm the ungrateful bastard. So I think I should just go.
He storms out.
You come back here!
Exterior Ashen House, night. Jamie storms out of the front door, hurling his suitcase into the car. Ella comes after him, pleading.
Jamie,
I'm leaving, Ella.
He jumps inside his car, starting it up.
you can't leave, Jamie. I'm afraid of what will happen if you leave.
He takes off, speeding down the driveway, and slams on the brakes. The front gate is padlocked shut. Jamie glances into the rear view, sees Boz approaching with a garden stake. Sweat pouring down Jamie's forehead, he reverses the car up as Boz breaks into a run. Jamie throws the car into drive, stomping onto the gas and barreling through the gate, smashing them down and fishtailing into the night. Charles is sitting at the upstairs window in his wheelchair, staring down at the ruined gates. There's something cold and detached about his look. Boz slows down, giving up the chase. Ella appears next to him.
I tried to stop him. Sorry.
Mr. Ashen would like to see you.
Cut to exterior, come on in motel, night. The motel sign sways in the wind, creaking. Interior, Lipton's room, come on in motel, same. This ain't the Hilton. Lipton sits on the bed, examining Billy. He sits the dummy on his lap, wedging his hand into the back of his head.
Hello there.
He takes a stab at the bit of amateur ventriloquism, doing his best to keep his lips from moving.
Hello to you, Detective. How are you tonight?
He's pretty bad at it.
Well, I'm just great.
Ring! He jumps, the phone rings. He puts it down the dummy and takes the call.
Detective Lipton. I'll be right there.
Exterior, Lipton's room, come on in motel moments later. Lipton leaves his door ajar, exiting the room and marching down towards the front office. As he walks, he looks down and notices Henry's sister Marion standing at the center of the parking lot, silently watching. Interior, front office, come on in motel, night. Lipton enters, approaching the counter.
Got a fax for me?
Hotel manager hands Lipton an envelope. He opens it, flipping through the pages.
That's everything that came in?
The hotel manager nods.
You don't say much, do you?
The hotel manager shakes his head. Exterior, Lipton's room, come on in motel, night. Lipton walks back towards the room. As he gets closer, he notices something strange. A voice is coming from within his room. He tenses up the way a cop does, edges towards the door, listening.
Is that what you want?
A second voice answers, deeper, muffled.
I want what you have.
What? What is it?
A family.
Don't you have one already?
No,
Why not?
it's taken from me.
Who took it?
Lipton reaches for his door, pushing it open and peeking inside. Interior, Lipton's room, come on in motel. We see Marion sitting at the bed opposite Billy the dummy. Billy is sitting up, looking straight at Marion.
Who took it?
There is no answer forthcoming from the puppet.
Hey, why aren't you talking anymore? Say something!
Lipton watches, confused, then opens the door fully. He steps towards Marion, but she doesn't hear him.
Madam?
Marion turns around, fear in her eyes.
What are you doing in here?
She points at the doll.
You talk to me. You won't shut up when no one else is around.
Lipton looks at the doll, then takes Marion by the arm.
Madam, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
He guides her to the door, easing her outside. She wanders around, then turns back.
She's in there with you.
Excuse me? Who's and where?
Marion's about to answer when she takes out her dead raven out of her pocket, smiling at it.
Best bird I ever had.
Lipton nods.
Right. Good night, man.
He closes the door. Interior, Jamie's car, night. Jamie steers the car through the black oblivion, pushing it to its limits, flying past the windows of the darkened streets of Raven's Fair. Not a soul can be seen anywhere. The darkened streets the town is lonely. The wind is its only tenant. Jamie slows the car to a stop, his mania subsiding. He collapses to the steering wheel as a clap of thunder roars disapproval from the sky. Finally, he looks up, staring at something through the windshield, atop a hill on the town's highest ground, the cemetery. Cut to interior Lipton's room, come on in motel, night. A frenzied symphony reaches its crescendo on a tinny radio in the corner. Lipton fixes a pair of reading glasses to his face, scanning the fax papers he received. What he doesn't see is the eye of the ventriloquist dummy moving towards him, glaring at him. Lipton glances over at the dummy. His eyes are facing front again. Lipton goes back to his faxed papers. This time we see what he doesn't notice from his peripheral vision. The dummy's whole head turns to face him. Lipton looks up, but it's not the dummy that has gotten his attention. It's a sound. A voice. Help me. Please help me. Lipton furrows his brow. Did he just hear something? Can you help me? Lipton switches off the radio, listening. Please. The voice is guttural, female. Lipton follows the whisper. It's coming from behind a cabinet. Help. Lipton snatches his gun and cocks it.
Who is that? Who's there?
He approaches the cabinet, heaving it aside and revealing a small wooden door about waist height. He grabs a flashlight from the desk, crouching down. He opens the crawl space door, slowly, carefully. He stares into the pitch-black square of darkness beyond the door.
Identify yourself.
He wriggles his way into the crawl space. Interior crawl space, come-on-in motel continuous. He lashes the flashlight in all directions. Unidentified objects clatter the space. Rotted wooden pillars support the low ceiling, running the entire length of the building.
Who's there?
Lipton crawls forth, his hands crunching in the gravel. Suddenly, the door shuts behind him. Lipton rushes to it, smashing into it.
Damn it, this isn't funny.
He stops abruptly, feels something behind him. A presence. He whirls around, aiming his flashlight into the inky void. Nothing moves but the shadows cast by its light. He turns around again, jerking on the door. As he does, the feeling looms behind him again, rising. He stops and spins around, coming face to face with the ghostly painted visage of Mary Shaw. So close, he can smell her rotted breath, her eyes burning like candle flames in open wounds. He reels back in fright, smashing into a pile of stacked up junk. His flashlight falls out of his hand, cutting out. Total blackness once again. We hear Lipton crawling on gravel, terror in his voice.
Jesus fucking Christ.
For a moment, only the wood beams around him reply, creaking under their own weight, until a sickening snort erupts right next to Lipton. He fires his gun, each shot illuminating the nightmare vision of Mary Shaw, crawling towards him, unaffected by the gunfire, smiling. Lipton's gun clicks empty, and he screams.
Ah!
We hear the sound of his scream being cut short, followed by the wet, throaty sound of his tongue being ripped out. For a moment, all we hear is Lipton gurgling, sucking in short breaths. They decrease in volume as his life fades, and then we hear Mary Shaw. She is whispering to Lipton in his own voice.
This is necessary.
Then silence. Exterior cemetery night. Lightning casts long shadows across the field of the dead, and one living soul. Jamie kneels over his wife's grave, head bowed. The wind whistles through the trees. Jamie is truly alone. Ring. His cell phone startles him out of it. He fishes it out of his pocket. The call is from an unknown number. He stabs the answer key.
Hello?
Electronic hiss replies, like breathing.
Hello?
A single word emerges from the white noise, like a cry for help in a snowstorm.
Jamie?
The line is a bad one, static interrupting.
Detective?
The static hiss grows louder.
Detective, I can't hear you. You're breaking up.
Syllables pop in and out, all Jamie can make out, and then...
You're innocent.
Jamie gets to his feet, stunned.
What did you say?
The theater. Go. Theater. Now. It's...
The hiss drowns out his words again.
Detective, I'm losing it. Detective! Detective!
The line goes dead. Jamie stares at the phone, speechless. He turns and runs through the headstones towards his car. Interior Lipton's room, come-on-in motel night. A bloodied hand appears out of the crawl space door, grabbing at the carpet. It hauls a body forward. Lipton's body. He gags, lurching forward on his hands and knees, clinging to life. He claws his way out of the crawl space towards the phone until his body gives in and collapses underneath him. Then, a light falls across his face as the door opens. Lipton's eyes widen in terror as a shadow falls across him. An unseen figure is entering his hotel room. Lipton follows the figure with his eyes, blood seeping from within his mouth. The unseen intruder picks up the doll calmly, pausing to stand over Lipton. He makes a noise, all that his tongueless mouth will allow, a throaty bark from deep within his gut, the last noise he will ever make. And with that, the unseen figure leaves, taking the doll. The door closes. Exterior forest night. Night has turned a sea of lush fall color into a black forest. Then, a pair of headlights spear along a road that winds through the trees. From high above, a car is just an insect dwarfed by the royal pines around it. Exterior roadside. Jamie climbs out of the car, scanning around. There are no other cars or signs of life. Exterior lakeshore, moments later. Twigs crunch underfoot as Jamie steps out onto the lake. A thick mist hangs over the water like a vaporous blanket, obscuring any view of the island at its center. Next to the boat, an old gas lantern hangs on a post, the flame inside flickering. Jamie takes it and steps into the boat. He pushes off from the jetty. The mist envelops him. As he rows towards the theater, the soft glow of the lantern floating in the thick fog is all we can make out. Exterior Guignol Theater, night. The theater. It looms against the black sky, daring brave souls to enter it. One such soul steps up to it. Jamie. He clambers out of the boat, gawking up to the building. He leans into the open door.
Detective!
The query echoes to the theater, and then is answered by a distant voice.
Inside.
Jamie hesitates, then pushes the door open. Interior Guignol Theater, night. By day, the theater is dim. By night, it's an impenetrable fortress of darkness. Jamie gropes down the aisle, exploring the auditorium with a lantern held out in front of him.
Detective!
No answer. He peers up into the lights. The door to Mary's living quarters swings open. Jamie ascends the ladder which leads up to it. Cautious, he begins to pace across the catwalk that leads to Mary Shaw's living quarters. He stops halfway across.
Detective!
Again, there is no answer. Interior Mary's living area, Guignol Theater, night. Jamie edges into Mary's meager lodgings. The room is empty.
Lipton, where are you?
He holds up a lantern, swinging it around as someone's hand covers his mouth. Audrey is standing in front of him, pointing a long double-barreled shotgun at him with one hand and smothering his mouth with the other.
Shh. If you know what's good for you, you'll be very, very quiet.
She raises the gun, whispering to him.
I told you not to come in here. We all did. You wouldn't listen, though, would you?
Hold on a minute.
I saw you take the boat. You think this is the only one I got?
Put the gun down, please.
You don't know what you've done, boy, coming in here, disturbing the place.
Sorry,
What is it you're hoping to find?
Detective Lipton called me. He told me to meet him here.
Bullshit.
Audrey edges forward, gun trained.
Detective Lipton is in here somewhere. I swear it.
There ain't no one in here but you.
I heard him.
Well, then where is he?
Right in front of you.
They both whirl when they hear the voice. It did indeed come from right in front of them, but there's no one there. Just a wall.
Who is that? Get out of there!
Wait.
Jamie steps forward, holding the lantern out in front of him. Audrey stops breathing, cocking the shotgun. Jamie reaches the wall, examining it with a lantern. He looks back at Audrey, then holds out his arm, and instead of hitting the wall, his arm extends through it. That's because it's not a wall at all, but a hidden door, disguised by the pattern of the wood.
Good God.
Jamie disappears through a hidden door. Audrey takes a flashlight out of her pocket and follows him through. Interior, the doll room, continuous. Foul air hits them as they step into the adjoining room. They step forward, straight into a sheet of cobwebs. Jamie swats at it, clearly not a fan of spiders. They claw at the webbing away, revealing a better view of the chamber. It is long and narrow, with ratty drapes covering shelves that line the walls on either side of them. A single beam of moonlight leaks through a small window on the wall facing them.
Detective!
Audrey swathes the tenebrous cavern with her flashlight. Neither of them dares breathe. Finally, Jamie sizes up a taut cloth that covers up a side of a dust-choked dungeon. He approaches it carefully, picks up the corner of it. Audrey's heart is in her throat. Jamie rips the curtain away, revealing a large glass-fronted cabinet. Beneath the glass, all perched on shelves of neat rows like obedient children, are dozens upon dozens of ventriloquist dummies, all of them wearing the exact same tuxedo Billy wears. The flashlight gives each wooden face a moment in the spotlight, all the sets of eyes, all staring eerily at Audrey and Jamie. Jamie finally turns to face the cloth on the opposite side of the room. There appears to be someone or something under it. Jamie looks back at Audrey, who grips her shotgun. Jamie tears the sheet away. Audrey stifles a gasp. Instead of more wooden dolls, Audrey's flashlight finds a hideously atrophied human body, slumped over, its head bowed forward. Like all the other dummies, the body is dressed exactly like Billy. Audrey steps in close to the body, examining the hardened, leathery flesh of the face. She bends down, trying to get a better view.
This body has been preserved like a hunting trophy.
Wires are coiled around the body's chest, neck, and wrists. The wires run up to the ceiling, strung over wooden beams. They dangle down in front of Jamie, tied to blocks of wood. He grips one of the 4 wooden handles, pulling down at the wire. The body's head snaps upwards. Audrey recoils in shock. The wire has acted like a pulley, lifting the body's head to reveal a young boy, his features drooping like melted wax, his mouth elongated into a permanent smile that bellies his dead, unblinking eyes. It is the disbelieving red-headed boy we met in Henry's flashback, once alive, now just embalmed flesh filled with sawdust. Jamie lifts down another one of the wires and the boy's hand is lifted. He is a human puppet. Jamie lets go of the wires, repulsed, realizing he has been operating the boy like a marionette. The walls behind the boy are plastered with damp, faded newspaper articles. Headlines scream out at them. Missing boy search for child grows desperate. Raven's Fair mystery.
I think we just solved a 60-year-old mystery.
They stare down at the boy, transfixed. But there's something they don't see. Behind them, one of the dummies in the cabinets move. Its eyes turn slightly, creaking. Jamie whirls around and snaps the lantern onto it.
This boy.
Wait. Then, the dummy's whole head moves. It pivots to the right with a click, as if staring off at something. Another head follows. Then another. Then another. Like a spreading wave, every one of the devilish dolls swivels its head to the right, all focusing on something at the end of the room. Terrified, Jamie and Audrey follow the many sets of eyes that they were all looking at. A figure, sacking in a rocking chair at the end of the corner. Another ventriloquist dummy. At first, it does nothing. Then its jaw moves slightly, emits 2 hoarse, whispered words in the voice of Lipton.
Found me.
Jamie and Audrey stand before the ghoulish gallery.
Mary Shaw.
The doll's eyes turn to Audrey. Its face is a dread-filled rasp.
Lover.
Audrey looks back at the corpse of the young boy.
You killed that boy.
No. I gave him a new voice.
Flashback to interior doll's room, night. Flashback, the red-headed boy is slumped on Mary Shaw's lap, the dead and mummified version of the boy we have just seen. Mary strokes his hair.
Didn't I treat you well, Billy?
Mary then provides the voice of the boy, as she would for a ventriloquist dummy.
Yes, Mother. The best I ever could hope for.
Flash cut to interior doll room present. Audrey and Jamie are horrified by what they're hearing.
Why have you come back? Why after all these years?
So
hard to find the
perfect child.
Sometimes
You
you have to make one.
have to make one.
Jamie's chest heaves, unable to believe what he's hearing.
What happened to Lisa?
The dummy seems to be reveling in Jamie's pain, grinning.
I took her
I took
tongue.
her tongue.
Why? Why her? Why would you take her?
I did it
To
to bring you back.
bring you back.
And what do you want with me?
Come
Come
closer,
closer,
and I'll tell you.
and I'll tell you.
Jamie takes a step towards the grotesque puppet. Audrey reaches out to grab him, but he shakes free.
Closer.
Closer.
He takes another step.
I'll whisper
I'll
it
whisper
to you.
to you.
Jamie leans down, near enough to touch the dummy. Time stops. And
It's time to make another perfect child.
perfect child.
as the dummy whispers these words, a long, fleshy tongue pours from its mouth, licking Jamie's face. He reels back as the doll's cackling rings out. Suddenly, a bone-white hand covered in dead flesh clasps the side of the dummy's head from behind, followed by another hand on the other side of the dummy's head. Someone is crouching behind the dummy. A new figure begins to rise. It's Mary Shaw. She holds the dummy in front of her, hiding her face, her tongue writhing through the back of the head and projecting out of its mouth, lolling and flicking at them. The tongue is made of several other tongues, all melded together to form one serpentine appendage that stretches at least a foot in length. Jamie scrambles back as Mary advances. Audrey fires the shotgun, hitting the dummy and blowing it backwards through the window. Mary Shaw screams and vaporizes into thin air. One of the dummies in the cabinets turns to face Jamie and Audrey. It begins to laugh, filling the chamber with a nerve-shattering chorus of sadistic pleasure. From within the dummy, a ghostly apparition begins oozing out of the eye sockets, forming Mary Shaw's face. Boom! Audrey fires another shot, shattering the glass and destroying the dummy before Mary's spirit can fully form. Mary rips out another inhuman scream. Audrey fumbles it through her pocket for more shells. A third dummy turns its head, and Mary once again starts to slither out. Jamie watches this, realization crashing down on him.
Destroy all the dolls!
He seizes the gas lantern and heaves it at the cabinet. The lantern smashes into the shelves as they ignite. Mary wails in pain. The whole cabinet is ablaze. Jamie yanks Audrey towards the doorway. Behind them, the body of the young boy begins to move. His head lifts, turning towards them, his arms reaching out as a shape begins to leak from within him. Stumbling, Audrey and Jamie retreat into interior Mary's living quarters, and then down the corridor that leads to her quarters, stumbling out onto the catwalk. It trembles under their feet. They step backwards, eyes locked on the door to Mary's living area. Mary appears in the doorway, as calm as a python, advancing towards them down the passageway. She flicks her tongue out at them, menacingly. Jamie and Audrey back up as she glides down the catwalk.
I can make you
Can
scream.
make you scream.
She stomps down the metal grill beneath her feet, and the force is enough to dislodge the catwalk. It pitches downward, and Jamie and Audrey go plunging off of it. Jamie snatches the curtain rope with one arm as he falls. Audrey isn't so lucky. She screams as she falls in the air, and that's when it happens. Her tongue begins to separate from her throat mid-scream. It launches from her mouth in a geyser of blood, Mary Shaw collecting it from the air between them and slurping it down like a large, tasty slug.
Audrey!
Audrey's body smashes into the stage below, bones cracking. Jamie dangles high above the stage, his force swinging the rope wildly from side to side. He looks down, seeing a halo of blood spreading from Audrey's body. He goes for broke, letting go of the rope as he reaches for the curtain, grabbing the red velvet and sliding down, landing so hard on the stage that he crashes through it and lands into a body of water. He surfaces, gagging and coughing, whipping his head around and being greeted by a clown face. He is treading water in some kind of storage area for stage props, long since flooded. He ducks under the water, lunging forward and spear swimming through mannequins, costume racks, garish masks, and more. Memoirs of a glorious past, now left to drown in the basement. He reaches the Sulce Gate and spills out into the lake. Jamie pitches headfirst into the murky moat. He resurfaces, gasping, and begins kicking for the shore. Halfway across, he stops, lost in the fog. He whips to look around. He doesn't know which way to swim. Below him, under the water, a dummy floats like a corpse out into the current, the very one Audrey had blown out of the window with the shotgun. A hand begins to claw its way from within the dummy's face. On the surface, Jamie kicks forward, not seeing the body of Mary Shaw forming underneath him. Her hand breaks the surface, rising like a leviathan. Her shoulders clear the water until she stands on the surface, gliding gracefully across the water, heading straight for Jamie. His heart skips a beat as he sees her. He kicks and sputters, surging forward, struggling to move. Mary is closer now, arms outstretched. Desperate, he takes one last dive and lands on hard ground. Exterior forest. He claws himself out through the mud, standing up and running forward, branches lashing his face, blood sticking his eyes. He stumbles out onto the road, seeing his car up ahead. He sprints to it, flinging open the door and jumping in. He slots the key into the ignition. The engine screeches in protest.
Come on, come on!
The car roars to life. He stomps on the gas and is gone. Interior, Jamie's car moving. Jamie checks his face in the mirror. Sweat and blood trickle down his forehead. Something has changed about him. His eyes look wild. Once he was on edge, now he's over it. He accelerates, the trees whipping past him on either side of the lost highway, taking him somewhere, anywhere away from here. Exterior, come on in motel, night. A storm is brewing. Jamie's car is screeching to a halt outside Lipton's room. He leaps out, charging up to Lipton's door. He pushes on it. It's open already. Interior, Lipton's room, come on in motel, continuous. Jamie maneuvers inside the room, careful. He treads forward, and then he sees it. A river of blood tracks across the room, leading from the crawl space door into the bathroom. Jamie prods the bathroom door open. Lipton is there, twisted on the floor, his face grossly contorted, his tongue missing. Jamie starts tossing the place, ransacking drawers and everything else in his path. Then, his eyes land on something and he stops. Sheets of paper on the ground. Police records. A mugshot of Boz stares up at Jamie, his fingerprints laid out beneath it. Jamie plucks the paper up. As he reads a cover letter from the fax Lipton received, we see the keywords hitting him like darts. The fingerprints found on the axe you turned in match those of Michael Boz Bosley. On a separate line, there is a second set of unidentified fingerprints. Jamie looks up from the paper.
Boz.
He spots Lipton's gun on the ground near the crawl space entrance and snatches it up. He scours around, locating a spare clip of bullets. He takes it, jamming it awkwardly into the gun, and is on the move again. Cut to exterior Ashen House, night. Home sweet home. Jamie peers through the gate, which swing in the breeze, the oil-starved hinges moaning. He heaves them open, stepping into the grounds of the house. The fog curls up around his legs like tentacles. The thunder cracks in the distance, lightning blinking and illuminating the house. He moves towards the garden shed, which is lit from within. He swallows and cocks the gun. Interior garden shed, Ashen House, night. Jamie swings the door open. The shed is empty, a lantern creaking as it swings in the wind. Breathing hard, Jamie explores the shed. On the wall, there is a rack of tools, held in place by nails. A hammer, pliers, a set of garden shears, and a space where an axe should be.
Warm.
Jamie wheels at the voice. It came from outside the shed. Exterior, Ashen House, night. Jamie edges the outside, surveying the dark garden. Not a soul in sight.
Warmer.
Jamie hones in on the voice. It's coming from directly ahead amongst the trees. He takes a tentative step towards it, knee-deep in fog. The shadow of a figure begins to take shape in front of him. Jamie stops moving and aims the gun, his hand trembling.
I can see you there, Boz.
No response. An agonizing beat. Then Jamie steps forward again, as Boz sits bolt upright in the fog, his tongue missing. He gags, spitting blood and gripping his throat. He grabs Jamie's foot, eyes pleading. We hear the sound of a disembodied laughter swirling around Jamie, receding into the distance like a waking dream. Jamie bends down, trying to help Boz.
No, no!
Boz sags in Jamie's arms as he sucks in his last breath. He's gone. Jamie fights tears, more of anger than anything else. He looks up at his house, clenching his teeth in fists. Interior front door, Ashen House. The front door lumbers open arthritically. Jamie steps inside. The sole sound comes from a distant clock. Jamie edges forward, holding the gun out before him. Interior stairwell, upstairs corridor. He climbs the stairs, every creaking corridor a thunderclap in the dead quiet. At the top of the stairs, a mouth of darkness beckons to him to become its food, the hallway. Intermittent pools of light are cast by the wall-mounted lamps receding down the hall. He creeps forward. Tick, tick, tick. The grandfather clock ahead of him goes about its business. There's another sound. Then crunch. Jamie looks down. He lifts his foot, the slime of a dead cockroach stretching up from the floor. Several other cockroaches crawl up his legs. He swallows in disgust, flicking the insects away. Another cockroach skitters from underneath the door, then another. They're coming from Jamie's bedroom. Interior, Jamie's bedroom, Ashen House continuous. The door winds open. Jamie fumbles inside. He surveys the room, his eyes panning across the white sheets which are draped over the furniture in the bedroom. A cockroach appears from under one of the sheets. Jamie moves towards it, seizing the white sheet and ripping it away, revealing an old wooden diaper changing table. A leather-bound book sits on top of it. Jamie picks up the book, flipping it open. A lock of hair is taped to the front page. On the next page, an ultrasound photo. Then a tiny footprint. Jamie reads the words written on the front.
Memory of Ella and Charles Ashen's daughter, 12th of August, 2005.
He runs his fingers over the diaper changing table.
She lost a baby.
Jamie sets the book down and tears one of the other white sheets away to unveil a crib, complete with hanging baby toys dangling above like circling vultures. He peers into the crib. A huge pack of cockroaches scatter around the soiled sheets in it, crawling over each other. At the center of the swarm is a jar filled with a yellowing liquid. Jamie shudders with revulsion with what he sees in the jar. It's a fetus, curled into a ball and shriveled. Then, a noise coming from outside it's coming from outside the room. He snaps his head around. It's the sound of someone sobbing. Interior upstairs corridor. He steps out of the bedroom, stalking down the hall. The whimpering sobs drift towards him from the sound of darkness up ahead. Jamie advances. A light spilling from underneath the door at the end of the hall comes into focus. It's the door to the master bedroom. He approaches it, the crying getting louder and louder as he goes. And in the dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark room. The door creaks open. Jamie slips inside. He glances around the huge, sparsely furnished room, past a four-poster bed shielded by a sheer lace curtain, past a fireplace, its flames giving off the only light, to a tall, freestanding closet. The sobbing interrupts him again. It's coming from within the closet. The closet doors open a fraction, a thin blade of darkness separating them. Jamie plays statues staring at the closet. We can hear his heartbeat. He treads towards the closet. Closer and closer. Standing in front of it, he grips the gun tightly, takes a deep breath, and throws the doors open. The chime of coat hangers greet him. A face grins at him from the back of the closet. Billy. The sobbing melts into laughter, a slow, burning cackle. Jamie freezes as he realizes the laughter is coming from behind him. That's when a mirror mounted on the inside of the door shows him a terrifying vision. In the reflection, Mary Shaw is standing right behind him, grinning. He whips around to face her. She snarls at him, her tongue worming across her chest like a blood-soaked eel.
I can make you scream.
No, you don't scare me.
Jamie snatches up Billy, the dummy. Mary hisses at him.
I think you're a bit too old to be playing with dolls.
Mary charges at him, arms outstretched, as Jamie hurls the dummy into the fireplace. The flame consumes the doll, the paint of its face bubbling and melting as it's scorched. Mary lets out a shriek heard in hell, her body writhing in agony. And then she's gone. Her screams fade. Jamie sags into the corner, exhausted with fear. His breath subsides, and he closes his eyes. He finally opens them, looking around the room. There's no sign of Mary. The only sound is the crackle of burning wood. Jamie's eyes land on a figure in the corner. It's his father. Sitting upright in his wheelchair, he faces Jamie with a stolid expression of a coma patient, hidden in shadows. Jamie gets up, slow, locked on his father. No answer is forthcoming. Jamie steps closer to him.
Dad?
He steps closer again, reaching his father. Jamie clutches Charles by the shoulder, jostling him.
Dad?
And then it happens. Charles flops forward in his wheelchair. Jamie stops dead, cannot comprehend what he's been seeing. All of the meat has been stripped away from Charles's back. Instead of an exposed spine, the flesh has been embalmed, stitched together, and stuffed like a doll. Jamie's mind does cartwheels as we flash back. Interior master bedroom. We have returned to an earlier scene where Jamie first reunited with his father. As Jamie stands and dismisses the pleasantries, we rotate around the view to see behind Charles and Ella. From here, we see Ella operating Charles like a puppet. As he talks, we zero in to see that it is Ella's throat moving, providing Charles's carcass with a voice. Cut to interior dining room. We are back at the dinner table with the Ashens, with Ella spoon-feeding Charles at the head of the table.
Isn't this wonderful, all of us eating dinner here together?
As she says as we rotate around her, seeing that the gruel she is shoveling into Charles's mouth is not being consumed, but dripping out of a hole in the back of his head like a leaking pipe. Cut to Jamie's apartment. Flashback. Back to the beginning. The phone rings and Jamie lets it go to the answering machine.
Hello, Jamie.
Interior living room, Ashen House day. Ella is at the other end of the phone, speaking in the voice of Charles.
I only want to say 2 things. Please allow me to do so.
Cut to interior master bedroom. Jamie reels back from his father's solidified body, stunned. A shadow flats across the wall behind him and he whips around. There is a presence in the room. Jamie follows it with his eyes until his gaze lands on a figure lying on the bed behind a lace curtain. We see the shadow fall into the figure, which then sucks in a huge breath, sitting up. It's Ella. She's smiling at Jamie, a motherly smile. She climbs out of bed, walking towards him.
You don't have to be afraid of him. He can't hurt you anymore.
Cut to interior dining room, Ashen House flashback. A spotlight illuminates Ella, looking very pregnant. We are seeing this in the same style to which we saw the Mary Shaw poem in the opening scene. As in Mary's story, a man steps into the light and begins attacking the pregnant woman, though this time it's Charles striking Ella. Interior master bedroom, Ashen House night. Slow motion, Jamie falls back away from Ella, shocked. He turns and runs, bursting through into the corridor. Slow motion as he runs. We hear Ella's voiceover running over a series of images which mirrors Mary's story in the opening scene, all played out in the harsh beam of a spotlight.
He hurt a woman named Ella once, and she lost her baby.
Cut to interior nursery. We are in Jamie's bedroom, only now it looks more like a nursery. Ella is curled into a ball in the corner, weeping, clutching a child's doll.
After that, she went a little mad and started hearing my voice.
Cut to interior garden shed, Ashen House night. Ella takes a small axe from the wall of Boz's shed.
My voice calling out to her.
Cut to interior Mary's living area, Guignol Theater. Flashback. Ella swings the axe, smashing on the lock of the trunk which contained the ventriloquist doll.
Telling her that she could give her the one thing she wanted more than anything.
Interior staircase, Ashen House. Slow motion as Jamie runs down the stairs.
A family.
Interior nursery, Ashen House night. Ella stands above a crib, cradling Billy in her arms. We see an apparition rise from within Billy, entering Ella's body through every orifice in her face, possessing her.
Now Ella is no more.
Cut to interior bathroom, Ashen House night. Charles shaves with a straight razor. Charles spins around to see Mary Shaw. He screams, his tongue ejecting from his mouth. Cut to entrance hall, Ashen House present. Jamie reaches the front door, desperate.
The murder of your wife brought you back here to this house.
Jamie suddenly freezes. He turns slowly to his right, staring off into the living room. Pure horror spreads across his face. Whatever he's looking at, it must be a vision of hell.
But now I need you to be the perfect child for a perfect family.
We see what Jamie's looking at. It's Lisa. Her decomposed corpse is sitting up in a chair, rotting dress clinging to her body, flesh shriveled and pale, mouth gaping open. Jamie screams, a primeval cry from somewhere in the abyss. We close in on his mouth until it swallows us whole, plunging us into darkness. We hear Jamie's scream being cut short by a fleshy, wet, ripping sound, followed by a throaty gurgling. And then nothing. Cut to interior bedroom night. We're back where we began. 2 figures hidden in shadow. A mother reading to her son before bed by candlelight.
But should you ever see her and your knees go weak, and you forget to hold in your shriek, remember these words that I have sung. It won't be a cat that's got your tongue.
This time moving close enough to see that the woman on the edge of the bed is Ella.
So what do I do if Mary Shaw comes to visit me?
Ella laughs. She's enjoying this.
There's only one thing that can stop her.
She picks up the candle at the bedside, leaning in a little closer to the boy, who we now see is not a boy, but Jamie. He lies still on the bed, eyes open, unblinking. A young man, once alive, now just embalmed flesh filled with sawdust. A human doll. Through Ella's ventriloquism, a voice seems to escape his cold, dead, tongueless mouth.
What's that, Mother?
Ella whispers for emphasis.
Silence.
And with one breath, she blows out the candle, plunging us into darkness. Fade out. All right. Well, that's Dead Silence. So, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one.